Hi,
Hi, Dr. M.
welcome to Dr. M's dojo. Welcome. Yep, here we go. And it's so
Happy to
nice
be
to
in your
have
dojo.
you as my guest. And I've been looking forward to that. You're my third guest of honor, and welcome, Lawrence, Adam, Lawrence. Both of them are very famous of mine. I know Adam was this thing then, and I love this movie, Lawrence of Arabia. So it comes very fast to me. I said, Lawrence is very fine. So here we are. So
Thank you for inviting me to your dojo, Dr. M. I'm pleased to be here.
okay, so let me take it through. Here we go. We are going to have a lovely interactive session. So welcome to Dr. M's Vodcast and Dr. M Vodcast. Dr. M, I'm actually Dr. Mohan Parmeshwaran, but it's such a long name. So it was Mark Deluzio who said, I'll call you Dr. M. I said, fair enough. From that day, he has threatened me that I need to, pay him some honorary fees for giving me this name, etc. But here you go. So Adam, again, welcome to this podcast. And as you see, we're going to have a real interactive session. And honestly, one thing that you notice in this series that I have not used the word implement.
Yes.
Okay. You can implement continuous improvement processes, whether you want to use the lean mode, you want to use the Toyota production management mode, you want to use the Kaizen mode, you want to use the TPM mode, you want to use the TQM mode, you want to use the TOC mode. Irrespective of that, one of the things that I found across my consultancy and my career, this thing is whatever improvement process that we do, it at certain times it becomes a little difficult to sustain it. Okay,
Right.
so sustaining. So when I saw your book and I attended Gerard's visual Lean Summit, that's the first time that I interacted with you. It was a very good experience for me, and thanks a lot for introducing me to your book. I mean, I know every page of it, every chapter of it.
That's
okay.
true.
So,
you seem to know more about it than I do, which I love that. That's great.
And I'm not going to spare you this time. This is the first book you wrote, but you're going to write at least one more.
Well, I can't guarantee that, Dr. M. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Rocky. Have you seen the movie Rocky? You familiar with that? Rocky.
Yeah, you want me to narrate? He says that life is all about body blows, and every time you hit the mat, you get up and move again.
That's true. But at the end of Rocky, when he gets into the big fight with Apollo Creed, and Rocky does not win in the first fight, Apollo Creed says exactly what I say. There ain't going to be no rematch. So we have one book, and there may not be a rematch. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
Ninja, there will be a rematch, I assure you. You're going to write one more book. Okay. So
Revenge of the Wheel.
Revenge of the Wheel, call whatever it is.
Okay.
Right. So
all right.
So again, thanks a lot, and we will be chatting a lot. And I love the way you talk. I love the way you do storytelling. It's amazing the part that you have of storytelling, and you get everybody immersed into your mode. And I love that about you. Thanks a lot again for coming. And here you are. This is my podcast, Dr. M. Adam Lawrence, the managing partner of Process Improvement Partners. That's the title that you have. And I love this. Today you're wearing green, but I love blue. Okay, so this looks nice. Okay, and this is the amazing book. And I like the Wheel of Sustainability, engaging and empowering teams to produce lasting results. So you have captured the theme of our series pretty well in this book of yours, of supporting and sustaining continuous improvement process. One thing, you're also into process improvement, so it syncs either way. So that's the wheel that you have. And you're doing very well with the book. Don't deny it. Don't deny it. Look at the ratings that Amazon has still got on the Amazon. A 4.9, the 88%, you got 5-star.
Well, and I appreciate that, but one might say there is a small data set so far. So I would love to have more reviews, just so that I can get the feedback from others who have read what I've written.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You will get a lot of reviews, and I have read a lot of reviews, and they are on dot and specific, and because I myself have read your book and have posted a review. We'll talk about it later. So here we are, is Wheel of Sustainability. That's the series that I'm having through. You did your Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering for the University of Virginia. Why am I telling you this? Everybody knows it, but you say it's formality that I introduce you. Lean certification, University of Michigan, 300 plus Kaizen events. And that you have done worldwide, right? Across multiple industries. And you're a continuous improvement process practitioner for over 3 decades. That's an amazing experience. I did not, can you tell me something about your career per se? You're very silent in the books, or I couldn't get it on the LinkedIn. So you can just give me a 2-minute intro on your.
Sure. Well, thank you, Dr. M. Right. So right out of school, right out of Virginia Tech, I moved to North Carolina to work for a furniture company, Thomasville Furniture. They're no longer in business, but that's not my fault. But I was supporting efforts at a number of their facilities. And then I moved around. I was a corporate engineer. Then I was in supervision and operations management, and then corporate support. And so I moved through 5 different industries within the same corporate structure. So there was furniture and ceiling grid and ceiling tile and vinyl flooring and ceramic tile. And my last 6 years in my corporate career, which ended about 3.5 years ago, I was the lean champion for a global technology group of the world's largest ceiling tile manufacturer. So that was my opportunity to really utilize my skills and influence and test what I was learning through all those many years to engage the hearts and minds of the entire organization and drive our performance forward. So that really solidified the work I was trying to do. Last 3.5 years, I've been out on my own, running what you said, Process Improvement Partners, and I've been helping companies globally to improve their processes, improve safety, quality, delivery, customer service, and so on, solving complex problems and sharing with them the wheel of sustainability, so that once we solve the problem using whatever continuous improvement tools are needed, we have a sustainable solution, so things are as good as or better than the way we left it at the end of a Kaizen event, which is my typical approach. And we'll talk about it a little later when we get into leadership commitment and chartering.
Excellent. When are you coming to India? Have you been to India?
I have not been to India. I never had the opportunity.
Come.
Happy to do it. So once the world opens up a little better again, I'd be happy to do it. So I have been to Russia and China and Europe and a number of other countries where we either I was serving clients or helping within my corporate career.
Okay, great. So here we go. Now, this is what we're talking about. We are talking about the wheel.
Yes.
So you are going to be on the driver's seat, so you can,
Okay.
I'm handing over the wheel to you.
Okay.
Thanks for being on Dr. M's podcast. Over to you.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing and you got to start sharing the
I sure
meat
will.
of this program.
Right. Well, thank you, Dr. M, for giving me this opportunity. And, I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. Of course, it's always been great speaking with you. And so today we're going to talk about sustainability. So not implementation. Somebody said we don't need to talk about implementation. We know how to do that. Sustaining those implementations and those changes and those efforts. So this is today, and my gracious host, Dr. M. So I am going to give a short review of the wheel, and Dr. M is going to step in anytime he wants to ask a question. So let me see if I can actually make it work. There we go. So why a wheel? Okay, so the first thing is, what was the problem that I was trying to solve? People always ask, what is the problem you're trying to solve? If you can't identify the problem, you can't create a solution. So what I noticed as I was helping teams all over the world solve problems, I would go back to my corporate job, come back 6 months later, and the problem had resurfaced. So that really bothered me. We put in so much effort to solve problems. There's just got to be a way. There had to be a way to sustain those solutions. So I made that my mission. I made that my mission because I could see the frustration. You could see the wonderful energy of teams as they solved these complex problems and found these breakthroughs. But the frustration of those problems coming back after they put so much time and effort. So my solution was a series of elements that I put together as a system and eventually created this image of a wheel. Why? Because many people are visual thinkers, not everybody, but if you can put an image together, people can remember it. So the idea was a wheel. So I live in central Pennsylvania, and there is a group of folks called the Amish, and they drive wagons around. So if you think of a wagon wheel, my wheel has 8 spokes and a central hub. And each of those spokes represent elements of that wheel that are critical to enhance and give chance for sustainability. But the hub is the thing that holds everything together, and that's leadership commitment. So again, if you think of a wheel, if I lost one of the spokes, the wheel would still work, but it would be weaker. But if you took away the hub, it would all fall apart. And that's the image that I was trying to create so that I could share that with potential clients or sponsors or managers or my team members, so that they could see how it all fits together and why and how leadership commitment is so critical to make everything work.
Yeah,
okay, so that was it.
Yeah, the spoke goes in the clockwise direction, Adam.
The way I write about it and the way I speak about it, I start clockwise, but I'm told, somebody told me that he's going to make me go in different directions. I'll start clockwise. But yes, so we start at notification, and I'm going to give some very short summaries of each of those spokes. And then Dr. M, you're welcome to ask questions or jump in anytime you like.
Sure.
How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, so that's the wheel. So the wheel is the system. So understand that this is not saying this is lean or this is Six Sigma or this is TQM or TPM. What this is saying is this is how to build a system around whatever methods you use to sustain those gains for the team or the people that put the work together. Okay, so I start in the middle because I believe it's the most important. Now, if you read my book, you'll find out I didn't do that. But I realized that when I try to explain this to people, that people need to understand and have an image for leadership commitment, why it is so critical, and how to engage leadership and give them the image of how they can show their commitment and support the implementation of the efforts and the wheel. So the first thing is to be visible and supportive. So leadership does not stay in their office. They go to Gemba, right? They come see, they come support, they show that they care. when I do these multiple Kaizen events all around the world, the first thing is to prepare leadership so that they can do everything possible to make sure that the team has a winning experience. So my method of doing that is the image on the right, which I call my chartering to create a winning result. So I could go into that all day. Dr. M says, I don't have quite enough time for that. But what I will do is tell you that there are 4 key elements in my view, and understand that this is just my view of the world. The first thing is to understand what is the problem we're actually trying to solve. So that sounds easy. What I've found chartering with hundreds of people, that it's not always easy to do in a clear way. So what is the problem we're trying to solve? How does it impact our customer? How does it impact our employees? How does it impact the business? And what is the specific impact? Is it measurable? Does it cost us time? Does it cost us potential injury? Does it cost us revenue? Does it cost us quality? What is that impact? So I review this with leadership before we have a Kaizen event. We're going to charter in this way. We have to understand, we will verify in Gemba. We will go see the problem as it occurs, and we will identify that problem. Next, we would say, are the objectives. So if I were to solve the problem during the Kaizen event or the project, how would I know? What would tell me that we've won? What specific measurable information would the team know to tell them that they are winning or they have won? So for example, if it takes 3 days for a process to deliver a final product to a customer, an objective might be do it in 1 day. So then we could test our new process and see if we've delivered to the customer in 1 day or less. So that's a clear measurable objective. The team can tell if they've won or not. I always like to put a safety objective into any Kaizen event, and I like to personalize it. So I always say 2 safety improvements implemented per team member. Therefore, every single team member feels the accountability and the responsibility to improve safety in their process, and they each have that responsibility.
Lovely.
Now, do you want me to stop there, or do you want me to continue
Fine.
through?
I like what you said about safety. That is actually coming from respect for people.
Absolutely. And I love to personalize it. So when I say 2 per person, what I'm not saying is multiply the number of team members by 2, and that's how many safety improvements. No, each team member has to hold themselves accountable and show the team what they personally implemented that impacted safety in a positive way. And oftentimes the team, which is the next step, we don't know who the team is until we know the problem statement and objectives. Now we can identify who are the people that can help us win, who are the people that are impacted directly by the problem every single day and feel the pain of it, who, when they implement safety improvements, will feel the benefit of those safety improvements, who understands what's going on, who can manage that group so that they understand how to help them during the event. So that is building the winning team. We do not want to randomly do this unless we're in a very, very mature culture where everybody is just so great at improving and solving problems. But oftentimes I'm working with groups that are very new to this. So we have to be very clear. How do we identify the winning team? We go out in Gemba and we talk to people. Do they care about it? Do they have an interest? Do they have a desire to make things better? If they do, they're a perfect person to be on the team. Okay, desire beats skills most of the time. Finally, who is the leader of this team? So I say it's the owner of the output, the person that has to deal with the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week output of the work that the team does. To me, that should be the team leader, and they own the output. If we do all these things, we have a really good chance to win. And people like to win. Most people do. Maybe not everybody, but most people like to win. So I work under that premise and that principle. So that's my image of leadership commitment. Another piece to understand is, since it's the hub, when I'm describing what has to happen, I'm also explaining to leadership how they support each of those 8 elements and what their role will be and what the image of each element is as relates to their leadership commitment. If they don't run out of the office screaming, I know we have a good chance to win. Okay, so that's leadership commitment, pretty important. It is the vital, vital. I want to make a comment. So I'm going to move on. So as you said, I start at the very top, called notification. Who is that handsome gentleman notifying a group? So the idea here, and I want to say, I missed this. When you do the wheel, when I'm running a Kaizen event, we are actually teaching the wheel during the event. And by the end of the event, we have implemented, sorry for that word, implemented, but we actually apply the wheel to the new improvements during the event, not later, but during. That way the team is designing those sustaining elements into their final solution and testing them.
So they're getting the ownership, right? They're getting the ownership of the process.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Absolutely right. Right. So the winning team is so critical, because without that, will they truly own it? Right. So who cares enough about this problem to solve, and who cares enough about it to ensure that their coworkers utilize the new changes as well? So one of those first steps is we're going to notify the rest of the organization, those that were not on the team. So this notification may be in front of a lot of people, a large audience. So we know that people's attention spans are quite short, and they may find that something on their phone is more important or interesting to them. But if we describe why we did what we did rather than just what we did, if what we're trying to accomplish is aligned with that vision or true north, or the principles that drive people to care, and if we have a compelling message, the odds are that first notification will get enough people's attention.
Yeah, Adam,
so what we're saying is,
can I hold you on that? Because I love this way you're presenting it over the thing of when you ask why, you activate people's mind and they start thinking. Instead of telling them what to do, you're making them think about the process and then evolve a methodology on their own, which of course will be guided by you. But the thought process starts with the question why. Am I right?
Right. You are correct. And understand too that the team that has developed these changes has to understand the why, because they're going to be the ones who notify in conjunction with leadership, but they truly understand why they did what they did. And sometimes change is hard, as we know. So you better know why you did it, because people are going to wonder and people are going to challenge you. The what is important, but the why is vital to get the alignment of the organization. And again, a first step into sustainability. So again, it's easy to just preach at people and tell them what to do. You have to show that you care enough that you would take the time to speak about why you did what you did and why you believe it's better, safer, simpler, less stressful, better for the customer. Why do we believe that?
Oh,
you do open yourself up for challenges and questions that way.
Yeah, a thought that occurs to me as you speak, and I'm relating to what you're saying. So the sustainability element, what we're talking about as the theme of my series of sustaining and supporting and sustaining continuous improvement, the sustaining thread runs across each of these spokes. Am I right?
That is correct.
And all the 8 spokes, the sustaining thread runs across each of them. Am I right?
Yes. You are correct.
It's not limited to one of the spokes.
It is my belief, as I built this wheel that wasn't a wheel in the beginning, that all these elements must be applied in order to give us the best chance to sustain. I can't say with 100% certainty, if I do all these exceptionally well, that you're still going to sustain. And honestly, because business conditions have been known to change. But what I can say is you have a much better chance if you apply all of these elements. Don't leave any out. Don't take shortcuts. Do all of them. And if you're willing to And certainly the payback is just tremendous. Sustaining a solution, sustaining your changes is so much more valuable than just getting short-term improvement. Right?
And let me reflect on that, and let me hear from the author himself that these are stepwise way of doing it. You notify and then go to clockwise.
Okay, so that's a great question. So notify is kind of the first step when you're getting out to the total organization, because then training and review seems to follow from that, but it doesn't have to go in these steps, in these order. It's just the way I thought about it if you think about, there's communication, and then there's visualization, and then there's a mechanical side, and then there's how do we reinforce behavior, and then it works its way up to the recognition side where we're sharing wins with the rest of the organization. So some might say that I was clever in my progression. Others might say that was just random. So I'd like to think that I was just randomly clever. But frankly, all of these, it's easier for me to explain it in stepwise, but you do not have to follow the steps in the order. You do not. Okay. All right. So let me take you to the next element, because I want to get to the elements that you want me to share deeper. Okay. So the next piece is what I call training and review. And the idea now is that I will be sharing the deeper information with the person or persons that have to actually execute the new standard. But we're going to do this in a one-on-one environment. You and I are going to do this one-to-one. I'm going to tell you about the change. I'm going to show you how to do the change. I'm going to show that I care enough to take the time with you to actually, just you and I will demonstrate that I can do it. That shows that, okay.
Adam, I'm just holding you there. So once you form a team, you interact with every individual of the team one-to-one?
Okay, so remember that the team is creating a change or an improvement. What they're going to have to do is train and review the change with others, right? Because what the team is developing, they're very familiar with, because it came out of their creativity, their knowledge, their efforts during Kaizen event, okay? Or project. You could use it, you could say project, you could call it whatever you will. But now, more than just that team that developed it has to understand what is it and how do I do it properly, safely, easily. How do I know what the standard is? Why did you do this? So instead of saying an organization of 10,000, this might apply to 300 specific individuals that are in a particular department or an area, or do this particular type of work that's about to change or is changed. So now we're going to have to take our team members from the project or the Kaizen, and they're going to have to go out, and they're going to have to have these one-on-one tell, show, and do training and review sessions. Now, this is modeled from Training Within Industry, TWI, right? But in a simplified version, because I'm a simple guy, and if you can't commit the amount of time and effort that TWI might require, right? And I'm a big fan of TWI, so please understand that I am. But sometimes it's just you and I, right at the piece of equipment or right at the office area or whatever it is, and I'm going to show you, then I'm going to have you demonstrate your ability. And what that allows is for engagement, discussion, questions. It's a very safe environment. I don't have an audience. It's just you and I. And it shows that I'm willing to take the time with you. Now let's talk about leadership commitment here. Leadership commitment is to allow us to take the time to do this. So let's say I have 8 team members, but 300 other people in the area that need to know this. Those 8 people have to be given the time to have one-to-one discussions, training, and reviews with each of those 300 people. That's quite a commitment. So it demonstrates that we care. It demonstrates that this matters So you can't do this with everything unless you're really, really good and you have more time than most people. But what you do is apply this to those critical changes. Don't have a Kaizen event or a Kaikaiku event on something that somebody could have just solved by themselves. This is about major breakthrough change that matters to the customer, to the organization. So yes, if it was that important, take the time one-to-one and show that you care enough to do that. Again, you want sustainability, you got to put in the effort. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm going to move on. So that's the communication side, but this is as well. So I call this next level or next element visible evidence. So the idea is from 20 feet away, I can tell that the person knows what to do or is not sure what to do. I can tell from 20 feet away that they're doing things properly or they're doing things improperly. So I use the question, how do I know? How do I know that they know what to do? Is it visible and visual enough that anybody could tell what to do? So I use the image of the parking lot because in most parking lots, you can tell from a pretty fair distance away whether you want to park next to that red car or not. Are they within the lines? Are they angled? Do they look like they're going to hit me with their door? You know, maybe I'll just park somewhere else.
So this the other thing you use your visual management tool, am I right?
Right, right. So what I'm teaching is don't assume that people know what to do. Give them the visuals and the graphics to make it almost impossible to do the wrong thing. So in simple example of a tool board, rather than just outlining a wrench, what we're doing is we're labeling the wrench. What is the wrench? What size is the wrench or spanner for those from the UK? Where did the wrench come from? Why does that matter? Because if somebody besides the person that was using the wrench sees the wrench just laying there somewhere, they know exactly where it came from, so they can help and put it back. They can ask the right questions and engage with their coworkers. But in the end, that tool is critical to the organization. And what we want to be able to do is have anybody be able to tell if everything's okay. Why? Because if it's not okay, they should get involved, engage, and help turn it back to okay. Rather than telling somebody they need to fix it, they can come in and help. If something is going well, they can come in and encourage and congratulate. So again, this is leadership commitment. We want leaders to come in and see that things are going well, engage with your people, and congratulate them for doing it the right way. If they can see it visually, they know very quickly, are we okay? Are we not okay? Now,
and then you want,
again,
then you want leaders to see that all the tools are available, right?
Right. So that takes us to the next. Yes. So let's do that. So all tools available. The idea now is that the team, now remember this stems from a team doing work. So they've created the visuals, but what they've also done is they've identified what are the tools that are going to help us in the safest, simplest, most stress-free manner. So let's go back to the wrench. So let's say most people keep this wrench in their toolbox. Well, we don't want to do that. We don't want people to have to search for anything. So I want to display the wrench, but I might need it in 4 locations. So let's get 4 of the same wrenches and hang them in those 4 locations. That way, no one has to carry the wrench. No one has to search for the wrench. Everything needed is available. So where does leadership fit in?
Excellent.
Leadership has to say yes.
Sure.
When the team decides they need 4 wrenches, leadership cannot say, can you live with 2? They have to be able to support.
Keep exchanging the tools from one hand to the other, right?
Right.
So that you provide one spanner, or spanner is what we are familiar with too. And then you say you have one spanner, and then you keep shifting the spanner from one hand to the other. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, that doesn't make sense. But it's all the tools has to be available. That has to be ensured by the leadership.
So again, the image for leadership is that the team will do their best to pick only what's necessary. And so when they pick what's necessary, it's critical and vital. So leadership has to only say yes. So approval should already have been given when the charter was agreed to. So the charter is almost a contract with the team to say, we've not been able to solve the problem. You solve the problem. All we're going to do is say yes to anything you request so that you solve the problem, right? So logical locations for things. You've got everything you need. You never have to search or transport. So again, this is ideal. Doesn't mean that everything is perfect. Nobody should think that. But in this picture, a bunch of welders determined which welding rigs they needed and their welding rods, and they put them exactly where they needed. And when they needed more of something, they got it. Approval was given. They knew it. And when they knew they wanted to remove something, they removed it. They didn't wait for approval for that either. And what this one did, this picture represents a group that used to take 2 hours to be ready to service a line when it was down, and it reduced their time from 2 hours to less than 2 minutes.
So the next
their customer stand.
I'm sorry to intervene here. This is quite clear, as you have explained, that leadership has to support and ensure that you see all the tools are available, and the way you have arranged this cell so that they know exactly where the tools are, so they are very comfortable with that. And then you're talking about clear benefits for whom? For the leaders or for the team or the operators?
All right, so you're moving me along. That's great. So fantastic. So clear benefits is the element that most of my teams don't enjoy. So what I have my teams do, the idea of clear benefits is this is going to make my work simpler, safer, and less stressful. Okay. You care about me personally, and it's going to help me personally. So the person doing the work gets the benefit. But, and this is a big but, the but is that they have to see it that way. You can't tell them that's what it is. They have to see it that way. So my teams in the middle of the Kaizen event, not at the end, are testing their ideas with people that aren't on the team. They are sharing what they're thinking of doing, and they get on the first discussion that it won't help them personally. The team member needs to address that. So for example, a team one time designed a lot of things, but everybody on our team was right-handed. When they went out and spoke with somebody else, they realized they had not designed it in a way that would help somebody left-handed. So that type of feedback and input is vital to get early in the process, right? Because now when we hand the process over to the greater organization, we need to know that people will follow it. And one of the ways that we know they'll follow it, if they see it as personally beneficial. So it doesn't help leaders, it helps the person doing the work. That is what clear benefits are. Okay. So let us move on. I know this is the one you were waiting for. This is the next element called layered audit. So this is how we engage and interact. And this is where leaders start to get their leader standard work. So
Adam,
layered audits means we are going to—
Adam, can I hold you there? Yes. Well, we discussed, and you did say that I'm moving a little fast. That was not the intention. The intention is that everything is very important, and this concept, which I'd like you to dive deeper into it, of layered audit, because audit, of course, sounds like a bad name, but as you know, it just earlier on the Latin thing was just to hear. But somehow it was more to do with to fix people, or people thought that audit means to fix them, etc. So I would love to hear from you. I've read that chapter a couple of times, and I require a deeper dive into it. Somehow there is a perception in me that would help the cause, while all of them will support and sustain it. But this would ensure sustainability. I don't know with respect to the weightage, somehow that's a feeling that I get. So I'm just presenting it to you that this seems, and I have not heard this concept of layered audit. So I would like that you can deep dive into it. I'm sorry I accelerated it, but I gave you the entire control to apply the brake whenever you want.
No, that's fine, Dr. M. Listen, I understand that everybody sees this in a different way, and I think that's great. What I would say that depending on the maturity of the organization, any element might be more critical than any other element, but they all fit together. So the idea of the layered audit, the first thing is that we have developed some new standard work system, whatever it is. And so what we can't do is assume, there's that word again, that everybody knows what to do and they're doing it the right way. So the idea is that anybody should be able to audit and tell if everything's okay. The health of the system is being reviewed. But we do this in a way that we engage with people. So when I am looking at something,
just 1 minute. Is it okay with you? I mean, I want to paraphrase everything what you're saying so that I understand exactly what you are saying. Okay. So that's Phantom. That's Phantom.
Phantom's paraphrasing.
Yeah, Phantom has to lend his voice in all the episodes of mine. So
that's great.
There you are. So what I hear you saying is that everyone has the responsibility or should have the skill and the, how do you rephrase it for me? Come on, let's hear it again.
So anybody can be an auditor. So the idea is the audit has to be simple and safe and stress-free and engaging. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to reinforce how critical these changes or this standard is. So it has to be simple, meaning that it can't take more than 5 minutes. So you and I can give 5 minutes out of our day.
Yeah.
But if I created an audit that took an hour, we would find reasons not to do it. But we also want to, I call it two-way learning. So the person auditing should be engaging with the person they are auditing and share what they're learning about and ask good questions. So go to Gemba, right? And have a discussion. Don't audit from a distance away. Do it with the person doing the work. Explain what you're doing. Learn from them. And if for some reason you see somebody not following the standard, and of course this moves to accountability a bit, so there's a bit of overlap. This is the opportunity to explain, engage, and help correct that behavior. So the idea of help is quite critical. So the idea of anyone being an auditor forces the team to create an audit that's quite simple. So it might be very visual. Now, this 5S audit sheet is not visual, except that when I audit as a leader or somebody doing the audit, I sign off, I score it, and then I place that audit in Gemba so that everybody can see that I was there, that I cared enough to take the time. And this is what I saw, great job group or good stuff. We could, we made an improvement here and there. Okay, so that's the overview.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Adib, do you, in this layered audit, do you promote self-audit, peer audit, or audit from the hierarchy, or how do you do that? I mean, is self-audit available? Is peer audit available?
Right. So you're right. You targeted the word layered because I didn't really talk about that yet. So the idea would be there are different layers of auditing, right? The person doing the work certainly should be auditing their work. And so they're doing that continuously. There are people that manage the person doing the work. They should audit, of course. As we go up the hierarchy, what we find, and I'll take you through that a little bit, but what we find is that they should still audit, but with less frequency. But what we're really trying to do is create that alignment and commitment of leadership all the way through the organization that this is critical. So when we audit, we show that we care, and people, in the old days, we'd call that the Hawthorne Effect. So for us more experienced practitioners, we know what that is. So we shine a light on something and people tend to perform better. But what this does is it reinforces our commitment and the importance of the changes. So let me take you into some principles, and then I'll take you into some audit layers.
Yeah,
Okay?
because I'm particularly interested in this because being also a TPN practitioner, especially with GIPM method of doing it, there's this very structured. You have to do a self-audit, you have to score so many points, and then there will be, it goes on and on. When you do JISUs and autonomous maintenance, you can't go from one step to the other unless it's cleared by a total layer. Do you have something like that? Or it is, how do you do it? I mean,
well, that's coming. But what I would tell you, understand that the teams that I'm typically working with, have very low experience with anything that even resembles an audit.
okay.
So what I have to do in the way that I engage with the teams I'm helping is I have to make it comfortable, safe, and not look overwhelming to them. Even the introduction of audit, we could spend an hour talking about some of the stories of when I tried to introduce even the concept of audit and how the pushback is. But when we get to the principles of the audit, let's do that first. And then we'll talk about the layer. So the kind of the mechanics of it.
True.
So the first thing is we're trying to assess the health of a system. So we're not assessing the person. So if the person doesn't follow the standard, is the system healthy enough that allows them to do it properly? So what we're seeing through audit is that there may be some gaps in the system. And what we want to do is close those gaps. Now, one could argue that sometimes people choose not to. Well, the business has different ways of dealing with that. What I don't do, I don't put that burden on my teams. Okay, so we want to create an audit that makes it very easy to assess. We want to assess the health of the system. That's what we want to do. The second principle for me, and that I share, is any deviation from standard has to be immediately corrected, but through support and help. What that means is if somebody was going to touch a hot stove, we would never let them do that. We would do everything we can and help them, keep them safe. This is the same idea. So if I'm auditing with you and you tend to do something that is not following the standard, I need to engage with you and immediately correct that behavior, because you may, number one, not actually realize you're doing it the wrong way. We need to reinforce it. If I allow you to deviate, basically what we're saying to the organization is it's okay to deviate. So again, this is that leadership commitment. The next one is you demonstrate your commitment through audit interactions and engagement. So in the old days, we would audit from afar and take notes and on our clipboards, and people wondered what we were doing. This one, we demonstrate our commitment by sharing what we're doing. Why are we doing it? So there's that word why. And we're learning together. So it's not that one person is more important than the other. The system is important. And together we're going to learn that. And we're going to reinforce that. We want to promote that two-way learning, right? So the auditor doesn't know everything that goes on. The idea, remember that everyone can be an auditor. So clearly some people are going to come out to Gemba and not be familiar. So this, what a great opportunity to reinforce and learn what's going on and feel like you're part of the process, that you can be helped as well. And again, I said anyone is an auditor, so I'm not going to repeat that. Again, the team has to be able to make it simple enough so that anyone is an auditor. So I use those principles when the team is designing their audit.
One of the thing that is really striking, which you told me, is rather two things. One is that you are auditing the system, not the person.
Correct.
Secondly, you're taking care of the person, so you are making the system so robust that any deviation is immediately brought to the notice, and you're ensuring that the safety of the person is ensured. That no deviation takes place that harms a person first there, but deviation from the system, you are saying, is checked there and then.
There and then. You are correct. You're correct. Now, remember, those other elements are helping us make it easier and easier to audit. So if I have those clear, visible evidence and they have all the tools they need and they see it as a benefit and we've trained them and reviewed, there's going to be nice standard work. There's going to be large visuals. There might be the andon lights, whatever it is, whatever the system the team has developed, the audit reinforces, enhances, supports that system. Okay.
Do you support that, since you said anyone can audit, what is your take that somebody who is not the process owner of that process comes and takes a fresh look at a system? How does that,
Yeah.
does that meet any, I mean, does it help that somebody from outside the system comes and takes a look at the system?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. So it helps both. It helps the system and it helps the person, because they get to feel that they're part of
The larger,
system, right?
yes.
And you're right, their fresh perspective, their fresh set of eyes. And what it does is also breaks down some of those barriers or silos. If the accountant can come out into Gemba in a manufacturing facility and audit and support as easily as the plant administrator, as well as the supervisor, as well as the human relations manager, everybody has a different perspective. And I think that's great, because we'll only get better when we bring other people's feedback and input into the system. So let me take you into the layers a little bit, because I know.
Sure.
So here's the way I think about it. There's lots of great technical terms, but I say at the first layer, the person doing the work audits their work.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I said. Okay, that's where the self-audit. Yes, agreed. I understand.
Self-audit.
Yes.
The second layer is think about the person supervising or managing the person doing the work. So the person doing the work should be auditing at all times. The person supervising or managing the work, the team is going to give them some frequency. Is it daily? Is it hourly? Is it weekly? What is it? And it needs to be at a frequency that's manageable and makes sense to do it. And by the way, they're not going to audit the same person at the same time. That is not what we want them to do. We want them to see the whole system, give everybody the opportunity, and don't audit when just things are going well or just when things are going poorly. Audit randomly so that you can see what the whole system looks like and where the gaps might be. The whole point of auditing is not to see the person doing the right thing. Is the system healthy?
So, this audit, if I can paraphrase you and permit me to do that, is that you are using this audit as a feedback system for improvement of the system.
Correct. Not just, but now we have to be careful. The team has put together this new operating system and standard. So we can't just change standard work at this point.
Yep.
The first thing we need to identify if changes need to be made, and that goes back to the team. But what we really want to do is to understand, have we given the people doing the work enough so that they can follow the new standard? That's where the gaps need to be identified.
I understand. So even if you don't change the newly created system by the team, but certain of these points can become lead to your next Kaizen.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Or there might just be an action.
Yeah.
So for example,
it need not. Yeah, that's right. It can be an individual Kaizen, point Kaizen, whatever. But then this, you don't change the system. You're just saying, and then you see what are the small things that are left behind, and that gives you another chance to improve from that point. Am I right?
Yeah.
Because changing the new system that you're incorporated.
So there's of course, for every rule, there's an exception. So here's the exception. If we identify a safety issue that the team did not recognize, we have to correct that immediately. Okay. So if they missed a lockout point, if they missed a pinch point, if they missed, a paper cut opportunity, whatever it is, if we've identified something, the team doesn't come up with the perfect solution. Kaizen is always about just getting better, not getting perfect, right? So sometimes that happens. It has happened. So as you go up the layers, it's you're going up the hierarchy. You're still saying you have a responsibility with maybe less frequency. The final layer is your top executives, right? And so what we hope is once a year, once a quarter, when they're visiting their facility, their office, their service area, whatever it is, make audit part of their visit. It helps them see the great work that their people are doing. And it, of course, reinforces how critical this work is. So that's the layers.
Sheer curiosity. And you have said, given a lot of stories in your books of real happenings, etc. Maybe in this episode we'll not be able to clear it, but then you're coming back to my episode a little later in the year or next year.
Okay.
So I'll cover up that. How the question to you is, how do you get the leader, the top management, to come to the Gemba and do the final layer audit?
Well, isn't that a great question? So if this is so critical, right, this goes back to leadership commitment. So one thing, let me go back to when we were talking about chartering way back earlier in our recording. What I'm able to do is provide that image because I'm showing them the wheel. You will have layered audits. It is going to happen. I know that's going to happen. I don't know what they're going to look like, but I know they're going to have a layered audit. If that leader is unwilling to participate, if they are showing that they're unwilling to participate, we probably should not have the Kaizen event. I've actually walked away from engagements, not because of that specifically, but because the leadership commitment was not there. There's many stories of that. Again, we don't have time for that. You bring me back sometime and we'll talk what happens when things go wrong, what happens when things go right.
Can I correct you here? That
Yes.
it's not sometime. I'm going to bring you here very often. Okay, not sometimes. I'm going to catch you. Yeah, I like this, what you said. So you know, this is where I resonate with you very well, is that I have walked out when I see the leaders are not committed.
Right. Because we want to win. We want a winning experience. Don't get in the game if you don't want to win. So we have to, it's my responsibility as the consultant to work with leadership prior to bringing the team together. So again, and I'm accountable to that. I want to give the team the best possible chance to win. We may not hit all our objectives, and I don't even think that's a loss, to give them that opportunity to do something to make things better. But if leadership's not ready to commit, and I'll give you one phrase that I know people have heard before. Okay, you tell me that I need 4 days to do this work. Can you do it in 2? Well, I will say that, of course, you could do it in less time, but you won't get the sustainable solution or the win, and you will not. So when they start to ask that question, I can definitely tell you they're not ready. They're not ready. I mean, maybe they don't trust my view of what is necessary, and that's okay, because then maybe we shouldn't work together anyway. But when I kind of map out the whole event, if we need 4, I might get you done in 3 days and 6 hours instead of 3 days and 12 hours, but I can't get you the win in 2 days. So I'm really trying to give that team the best chance to win. Leadership commitment. That's why it's so critical. So why don't we move from layered audits?
Yeah. And
we're going to go to accountability, because somebody told me this was very critical too. Very critical.
I did.
Some Dr. M told me. So, right. Okay.
And I want you to make a distinction between accountability, responsibility, and authority. Please, Adam.
Well, I can tell you, one thing people learn about me is I have terms that I use that not everybody would agree to. So here's what I'm going to do, Dr. M. I'm going to explain accountability the way I see it.
Sure.
And then you can tell me the distinction that you hear. Okay. So I'm engaging you. I'm giving you.
That's when you tell me that you're going to write a second book. When you tell me you're going to write a second book, I'll tell you the difference. You're sure, Adam. Go ahead. Accountability for me.
All right, here we go. So the first image that I give about accountability is if I was in my home and a small child was about to touch a hot oven, a hot stove, I would jump out of my chair and do everything possible to keep him or her safe and pull that hand away from the hot stove. Now, there might be tears. It may not look pretty, we might have to yell, whatever it is, but this is the same idea. The idea of accountability is that within myself, I cannot allow someone to not follow the new standard. I take personal accountability and responsibility to immediately correct that behavior. Okay, but I have to do it in a way that demonstrates that I care. So I've seen in many factories where people aren't wearing their safety glasses and people point to them to put their safety glasses on. That's not demonstrating caring. That's not. How do I demonstrate caring? What I need to do is I need to engage with you. I need to show you the right way. I need to understand why you are not able to do it, or why you chose not to do it, or you did it the wrong way, and take the time to explain what and why. So we go back to the why. So we take the time.
Just hold on, Adam. So what you're doing is that you are looking at what happened in the system that prompted him for not wearing the glasses. Am I right?
Correct.
And
Yes,
not
it's
blaming
just-
him. You are looking into the system, that what is it in the system that stopped him from wearing it? Where is his discomfort level, and what can we do about to change or tweak a little bit on the system so that he feels comfortable wearing the glasses? I'm just
Right.
paraphrasing it.
Yeah, and also it's maybe he or she doesn't understand why the glasses are so critical. So how can I make that connection to the system requirements and the visualization that says, and his or her activity about why it's so important to do it in that way, right? But I have to take the time. So if I'm walking by somebody that is not wearing those safety glasses, as an example, I have to stop what I'm doing and go engage with that person. It's easy to walk somewhere else, but what we do is we've now reinforced the negative behavior or the anti-standard behavior. So we have to be able to step in immediately. We need to care and we need to provide help. And so we have to understand it. Why is it so critical? Why will it help us? So in a factory lockout, right? If somebody chooses not to lock out a piece of equipment and puts their hands in harm's way, we would never allow that. So of course we would stop that. But if we're deviating from the system, deviating from the standard work, we have to show that same amount of accountability, personal accountability, to not allow it to continue. We have to show why it's that critical. So huge amount of leadership commitment here. Now, does that really explain the difference between accountability and responsibility and other things? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the way you have put it is you are accountable. The way I look at it, you're accountable for the system and accountable to ensure that the system does not induce certain behavior of an individual that would adversely affect not only your organization profitability or whatever you want to call it, but the person per se. That's the way I look at it, is the accountability for the system, the accountability for improving the system, and accountability to ensure that people do the right things that system was meant to provide.
Right.
If I've extended that, I leave it to you to audit.
That's good. Well, that might be in book number 2. Okay, so let's talk about the principles of accountability.
Yeah.
Because some Dr. Emmett said, I would like to take a deeper dive here. So I like to think in a principle way. So the first principle is leaders take personal responsibility. So I used responsibility here to correct deviations from standard. So it's not somebody else's job. Okay, it's easy to defer and delegate. Nope. You see it, you correct it. The next principle is nothing is more important than working in the safest, simplest, and most productive way. Anything else is unacceptable. So we have to feel that internally. The team has worked so hard to come up with the safest, simplest, most productive way to do something. To go back to the old way, to go back to it or do it your own way, that's not okay.
This is non-negotiable. This is absolutely
Non-negotiable.
non-negotiable.
You have to personally feel that way. So back to the prior slide, when someone deviates from the standard, you have to immediately provide that help and correct the behavior. You have to be willing to take time out of your day. Now, it's possible you might see this while you're auditing. So we're doing our layered audits and I see it, but it's also possible you see it as you're walking from one area of the facility to another to go to a meeting, and you're going to be late to your meeting, but you see some deviation from standard. What do? If you have true leadership commitment, you stop going to the meeting and you go right to the issue and you provide the help and care and correct the behavior. If you don't have the strength of the leadership commitment, you go to your meeting and you're not going to be late. But take that one step further. When you get to your meeting late and people might wonder why you did that, respectfully tell them what you did and why you did it, because what that does is it continues to reinforce how critical the new system is and the standard. Okay.
Yes.
There you are. All right. Any other thoughts about accountability before we move on?
Oh, perfect. Perfect. The
Okay.
way you have defined it. You're accountable.
Last,
You are accountable for the system that you have put in, and you're accountable for improving the system. That is your accountability, the way
right.
I understood it. All right.
So I like what you said earlier, and you kind of reflected something I had said. So if we make the system so easy to follow and almost impossible to do the wrong thing, and anybody can be an auditor, then anybody can take that leadership role to correct the behavior. But it's also harder to do it wrong because everything that you need is in front of you. Why would you do it wrong? Why would you deviate from standard if standard truly is safer, simpler, et cetera? And you see the clear benefit personally. But in the world, there's always somebody that's going to miss the memo or doesn't remember or chooses to do the wrong thing. There may even be somebody who chooses to do the wrong thing. Let's hope not, but it happens. Okay, so the final element is what I call recognition. And you said, I am a storyteller, and you are correct, sir. But here's what I've learned. So thousands of years ago, before there were printed materials, the way history was shared in family and learnings was just through the telling of stories. People relate to that. So what I call it recognition. Other people told me I should have used a different word, but I said, it's my word. I'm using recognition. The idea is that I recognize what happened. So something good happened because of the work we did. And so if we tell stories about it, it kind of locks in that commitment and understanding. And the ultimate view, in my view, is when somebody who wasn't on the team tells the story of something wonderful the team did and how it made something safer or better for the customer or whatever. And they say and tell the story as if they were there. So
Yeah,
it almost feels like they were on the team.
Yeah, I like this because, a lot of these folklores that are there, and you go from village to village or county to county, there are certain folklores that are there, which is basically from the word of mouth. And that's happened even in the Indian tradition of Gurukul, when, it was a word of mouth and there's nothing scripted. It was telling. And the folklores that went from village, counties or provinces or states, United States, all of them have their own. The folklore helps to talk about the heroes and build a culture in each of the states, or even in India, each of the provinces or each of the states have their own culture. They have their own heroes in the place on which the folklores are made. That is, I resonate with you of storytelling. And coming to the organization that you're talking, it's all the success stories and maybe the failure stories also that you express.
Yeah. And here's what I've learned about this as well. When somebody in the area using the new standard tells the story, it reinforces it for them. It builds that credibility. Remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to sustain. Sustain is hard. So we're trying to give all these elements to help drive that sustainability of whatever the change or the implementation is. But when I tell a story, I can still picture, you were telling me before we started recording, or maybe we did it while I was recording, the voice I used of the plant manager from
Yes.
1988. But when I recorded that story, I could still picture him and the cigar in his mouth, in his gravelly voice. And it was just, I remember the gentleman and I remember how it made me feel. And it just brought back that memory. In the end, we don't have possessions, we have memories, right?
Yes.
The strongest possession. So stories do that for us. People relate to that. I still remember team members, some of the fantastic, wonderful breakthrough things or emotional things they did to help each other and how they work together. And it makes me feel wonderful. And so the goal is, how can we get those stories out so others can feel that passion and enthusiasm for making things better for themselves and their coworkers? Stories do that. In my world, that's what they do.
In our world, it does.
Good. Yeah,
In our
because I can only
world,
speak for me.
Yeah, in our world, it does.
Good.
So I'm very sure, Adam, I'm not going to stop you from telling stories in your next book too. I come back to the same thing.
Oh, you're going to get another book out of me. My goodness.
Adam, you prompted me by a post today. Never take no for an answer. Keep trying, keep trying. You told the story of how the same gentleman with the cigar, you waited and waited and waited, and it proved that you went and tried out your conviction that something can work better for the organization. That's what Kaizen is all about, as you would define it, we define it, but Sensei Masaki Mai would define it, that wherever you are today, you're one level above that, an improvement for the better.
Right.
So nice
Okay.
that we have this chat, and you can carry on with this because I love hearing you.
Well, I appreciate that. So, you mentioned the book. So I had a lot of time. So I tend to be an at-site on Gemba practitioner. And as we all know, there was a period of time that none of us could do that.
Yeah.
So I decided to write about the stories in the system and try to make it simple. I don't want anybody to be scared off. There's a lot of work to creating sustainability, but it's all possible. It's all doable. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That's the way I think. So I tried to explain each element in a little more detail with stories that showed when things worked and when things didn't work. And then how did I actually implement, or how did teams implement elements of each, component of the wheel?
Yeah.
So it's out there.
Yeah. There's this period in which we couldn't go to the Gemba. You wrote the book, and Dr. M, that's me.
Yes.
Went into Vodcasting, which I never thought I would.
Yeah, look at you.
I never thought I did. And one thing that was really bothering me is that everything that we do, genuinely, everybody is interested in it. I don't see anybody who's not interested in improvement. But then you get the initial help, you go in for that, and then comes the issue of supporting and sustaining the continuous improvement process. So that's the reason that I started this series, and I learned a lot from you today. It clarified a lot of misconception, because one tends to understand the language, what he believes in. So he tries to translate that into what it is. So nice of you that you clarified some of my queries, and I will, of course, will always be bothering you on maybe direct messaging, etc. whenever I have more doubts on this. Thank you very much for being my guest, and so excellent.
So if somebody wants to contact me, I wanted to give a way to contact me. And for those that aren't in the United States, our country code is 1, so that's fairly easy. But you can find me on LinkedIn, and I love to talk about this stuff all the time. I'm going to take this slide off in just a moment, but just give you some of the contact details. And I do appreciate that. And here we are, away from the slides.
Okay, let's get the ninjas on.
Yeah,
that's right. Thanks a lot. Right. So it was a win-win in our dojo.
I appreciate that.
I learned a lot from you. I learned a lot from you, and thanks a lot. And rest be assured, you will be on somewhere during this year, next year, but I'm sure to have you around and speak more about it, hear more about your stories, and then you're going to write your next book. Okay,
Oh.
Take care. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you, Dr. M.
Yep, take care.
All right. Thank you so much.